This is my tutorial on how I made this so far Bargello quilt top. It's an easy method. I don't follow any kind of pattern. It just kind of go as you sew as you go. It's a little long. I accidentally got carried away, and it's about 104 inches long, and it's about 65 inches wide. I'm gonna make a queen size quilt for my mom for Mother's Day, but I think it turned out really well. And here's the tutorial to follow. Step in the Bargello quilt is to get your 2.5 inch strips. You can either use a pre-cut jelly roll, which you can pretty much anywhere, or you can, what I like to do, choose your own fabrics at the store and then cut your own 2.5 inch strips. When you have all the colors that you want, you just put them in the right order, or the order you choose. It really doesn't, matter. I just kind of did darker to lighter. I did use some of the strips from here. I just pulled out the ones that I like that kind of match my color scheme. And then what you do is you start sewing them together. I like to sew them all together in order. I put this one on the bottom and this one on top and sew them together. This one on the bottom, this one on top, so that they're all gone the same direction. And then that way, when I start sewing them together, I'll sew them the other way, so you have one going, one going this way, and then one being sewn this way, and one being sewn this way, and one being sewn this way. That way, they won't get all wonky. I'll show you how I do it. All right. So here is. Let's see if I can do this. All right. So this white. Let's see. This white snowflake was my next one. Now I will put that. That was the next one, so that goes on the bottom. And here's the one after it. And I just kind of, chain stitch these together. Is this here, and then you sew the next color goes on the bottom, and then the next color after that goes above that, just like that. And notice how I just piece it one right after the other to save from having to, well, it's not only does it save a little bit of Alright, this is the last one I'm finishing up here. Alright, now they are all sewn together. I have 52 strips, so that makes 26 strips. And then, here's a big pile of them over here. And then what I do is don't cut until you know exactly what you're cutting next. And then just keep on cutting them until you have all 26 pieces. And just cut them apart. Oh, this one was kind of close together, so be careful with that one. Just, there we go. And here's the next one. Alright, and then when you're done, see, they're still in order, but they're all together. And what I like to do, you don't have to do this step, but what I like to do is I like to press them open. So it makes it a lot easier when you start sewing, and it makes it a lot easier if it's pressed open. And just go ahead and press them all. I'm not the world's best ironer. Press them all open. And when you press these, make sure that after they're ironed, make sure that you keep them in order so that they don't, you know, obviously come out of order, so that they're still in the order that you wanted your quilt to be. I'm done ironing all of these open. As you can see, they're all nice and flat. The way I sewed them earlier, remember I've sewed the first one underneath and the next one on top and the next one underneath and the next one on top. This is the end right here that went through the machine first, and this was the end of, this was the very, you know, the end of the strips. You can tell because these strips don't quite match up. See, and I also use this, you know, the salvage edge on that end. See, these don't, see, none of them quite match up right. So you know, because we sewed this way on every single one the first time, next time when we start sewing these together, we're going to want to start sewing on this end. So these ends will match up. And what you do is you just cut this apart, or cut this across here like this. Or if you've got this little piece of white, you don't want that in your finished quilt, so you're going to go ahead and cut right here. And then you just go ahead and start sewing the opposite way that you sewed the first time. That way, again, it's so they don't get, you know, like a skewed quilt. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and snip this end, and then I'm going to snip the next one that comes after it. You could use a rotary cutter if you want to. I'm not going to, because I'm just going to cut them as I go. And then we're going to put these two ends together like this. And then we're going to sew right down here all the way. And we're going to do that with all of the 26 double strips that we already have sewed together over there. Alright, I'm done sewing all of these two things together. I went ahead and clipped them apart and restacked them in the order they go in, the exact same way I did the last one. I'm gonna iron these 4 lines like this. I'm gonna iron them open, and then I'm gonna go sew the 4s and 4s together, and then I'm gonna iron that open and sew the 8s and 8s together, etc., etc., until I have one long thing of strips. Oh, and these, when you iron, or not iron, when you sew these, you can continue to sew the way you were doing at the last time, not the first time, the second time from that end, you know, the opposite way that we were in the first time. Continue to sew them all that way. Alright, I'm done sewing all 52 strips together, as you can see, and it kind of goes from dark to light to back to dark again. Now what I have to do is I take the last strip and then the other last, both ends, and then I'm going to put the right sides together, and then I'm going to sew these together as well. Alright, before you start cutting your strips for your quilt, you want to go ahead and even up one side. Make sure you've got, I've got this folded over 4 times, so make sure you've got all the ends, so you don't want to, and let me tell you, these cutting boards and rotary cutters, they're great. I would not suggest doing this with a regular scissors. I mean, I'm sure you could, but it would be so much more work. Alright, go ahead and square up the edges. Alright, I measured the length of this after it's been cut, and the length is about, I don't know, give or take, about 40 inches. So what I need to do is I need to calculate exactly how many strips I need to cut and what size. I want my strips to be as wide as 3 inches and as small as 1 inch. If I do the inch and I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, I wind up with a 1/2 inch strip, which is about as small as I want to go. When I add up all the strips I'm going to do, here's the length. I make sure that when I add it all up, it equals 40. So it does. And this does equal 40 inches. Alright, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut. When you lay out your strips, some people like to follow a template, but I just like to do whatever. When you lay out your strips, I like to go up and down by increments. Let's see, we've got the, this is the 1.5 inch strip here. We've got a 2, I'm going to do a 2.5. a 3, and I'll open these in a little bit and show you exactly how it's going to. But for now, this is the way it's gonna go. Now we're gonna go back down, and we'll go. Here we go. Maybe I'll do 2 of this little tiny one. You know what? Yeah, why not? Then we're gonna go back up. Anyway, and so as long as you just do it in increments, lay them all out how you want them. Once you get them all laid out the way you want them, you need to choose which fabric you want to be on top first. And I'm going to choose this fabric right here. And so what you have to do is you have to open up the seam between these 2 fabrics. And I don't suggest cutting it because then it's not, the size isn't quite right, and I like it when all of my corners add up perfectly, or match up perfectly. So I try and, alright. So you unstitch that one, and that's the first one here. Now, you need to decide if you want it to go up, or if you want it to go down. Alright, so this is where we did the seam for the first one. Now for the next one, we're going to have that move up. And see, this is going to be the first one on this one. So we're going to go ahead and open up this seam for this one. And what I like to do is I like to make them move all the way, like go up one until I get to the fattest one, and then I like to go down until I get to the skinniest one, and then go up until I get to the fattest one, like that. Really, you can do it any way you want. But this is the way I like it. So after I'm done doing this seam, I'm going to move up one, and then I'm going to remove this seam on the next one. Now I am done taking apart all the seams, and there's my top area. And here you can see kind of as a whole, kind of looks like it goes up and down and whatnot. So now what I have to do is I have to take these first 2 and then put them together like this, and then sew them together here. And then I'm going to sew these 2, and then these 2, and then these 2, and then these 2, etc., etc. Then I'm going to iron it, and I like to lay it out here as I go. I'll sew these 2 and lay it back down, sew these 2, lay it back down, sew these 2 and lay it back down, and that way I can kind of do it visually, and I don't have to worry about making a mistake. Right, when you sew along this line here, try and match up the seams here, and sometimes you might have to tug a little bit on the bottom or a little bit on the top. I mean, not a lot, but just kind of make one a little bit tauter than the other. And also, see how this one is pointing this way, and then this one is pointing this way? It works a little better, the seams lock together a little bit better if it's like that. So, I'm going to do that. See how I'm trying to make sure all the seams match up? And then we'll just... I guess this one doesn't really want to do it because of the ironing, but we'll make it work. You can see I'm almost done sewing it. I need to iron it again and then sew these last 2 pieces together. It's not going to be very wide right now because all these half-inch seam allowances I've lost, you know, several inches. So I'm going to go ahead and do this exact same thing with a different, however the pattern is on the next one. And I'm going to sew the 2 big pieces together. And I'll show you how that works. Alright, so I finished sewing the one, and as you see it's kind of skinny, or not fat enough at all for a queen size quilt. So I did the exact same thing and I made them match up, see? So that's 52 strips in each, and so there's a total of 104 strips. It's about 104 inches actually, because it's 52. Alright, I am basically done. I've got it all sewn together and I think it looks pretty doggone good. A little on the long side. I need to finish doing the final ironing just to make it lay flat. I haven't decided what color border I'm going to do, but yeah, I'm really pleased with how it turned out.